All right, we're live. Hope all is well. And everybody's doing well. Hope you had a good US Open. And there we go, that's better. Get your questions in. I'll try to answer what I can. Today, we are talking wedges. And I think it's a great thing to discuss today because it's just a huge piece of our game. I mean, if we can get our wedge game tightened up and dialed in, like, your scores can be better than ever. It's the quickest way to lower your scores. And so there's just, but the problem is our wedges are so misunderstood. And what do we get? What do we buy? Like, what does it all mean? So get your wedge questions in, and then we can we can dive into, you know, how to pick the right wedge, what shot for what wedge, what type of gapping do you need in terms of your lofts on all your wedges. I have these Mac Daddy 4s. I have the SM7, the Vokey SM70s, the Callaway Mac Daddies, and I also have some SM5s. I have a ton of wedges because I always want to be prepared. For me, I'm obviously a little obsessed with the short game, so I want to be prepared for every situation I run into or any course I go to. So yeah, I'm a little over the top. Most of us will just get 4 wedges and we'll be all set. So, okay, good. We'll talk about that question. So, yeah, I'm obviously obsessed. So if I'm going to a course that's very soft, I'll take a certain set of wedges, and I might mix and match even between some of my Mac Daddies and my SM7s. But and if I'm going to a firmer course, that's a different animal too. And so it depends. A lot of it's the conditions you play. A lot of it is your swing, the swing type you have. And a lot of it is how you like to work your wedges. Do you like to open the face a little bit? Do you like to, why is it doing that? The camera's just, do you like to open the face? Or do you like to play a square face wedge? I mean, all of that matters, you know, in these little shots. Do you like to hit it low? Do you like to hit it high? How can you hit it higher? How can you hit it lower? So get all your questions in. Okay, one guy says, how come I keep blading my sand wedge and gap wedge over the green? Okay, so it helps. Okay, it's going to help me a lot if you put in the type of sand wedge. So what do you say? Can we keep blading my sand wedge and gap wedge over the green? So if you could put like your bounce on there, would be awesome if you know it, and whatever else other information you have, because that could be a huge thing. I'll show you on like, okay, here's a 60-degree wedge, and this is a SM7, Vokey Titleist SM7. It has a wide sole and 14 degrees of bounce. And they call this the K grind if you're interested. So it's your pretty standard looking 60-degree wedge with a wide sole that you would see a lot of people play. So if your sand wedge looks similar to this, here's one. I'll pull out a 54-degree. Let's see if I have one that's might be similar. Okay. So you could be blading it for a few reasons. You know, if you're coming up out of the shot, not pulling your head, but if you're just losing your spine angle a little bit, so you kind of come up like this, what you're going to do is, you know, you're going to hit it thin and it's going to go over the green. So that's something to look at, is if you're coming up, you're losing your spine angle out of the shot. It also could be you have a shallow swing, okay, and you're coming in shallow and you have a lot of bounce on the club, which means here's your leading edge up here, and the bounce angle is the angle or the degree of which this piece hangs below the leading edge. This is below the leading edge. So the more down it goes, the higher degree of bounce you have. So this is 10 degrees of bounce. You know, if you had like 8 degrees or 3 degrees or 4 degrees, it might look like that. It might be very flat. So if you have a very shallow swing and a lot of bounce, a high degree of bounce, that bounce is going to hit a little too far behind the ball, which causes that leading edge to come up off the ground a little bit, thus thin shot. Now that I just shallowed out a lot. So I would say look at that bounce angle and try to see if you're just coming in too shallow with your wedge, and maybe just try to work on picking it up a little bit and coming down on it. It might help with those thin shots over the green. Okay, here we go. Spencer, 12 degrees of bounce. Yeah, there you go. So I would say that's probably, Spencer, too much bounce for you. And you might look at something like in a 8 degree or even a 4 degree bounce and see if that helps. If you have that shallow swing, I think that would be something to look at. What I like to do is, so I'll have a wide sole on one of my wedges. Let's say it's my 60, and a lot of bounce. But then on my, here's a set I've played for years, this SM5s. I had this wide sole, a lot of bounce on my 60. Then on my 55 degree, I had 10 degrees, and a thin sole. And then I went a lot more bounce on my 50. I went to 12 degrees of bounce. And then on my pitching wedge, I did 8 degrees. So I was 8 to 12 degrees of bounce. But my most lofted club did not have the most bounce. Actually, my 50 degree gap wedge has had the most bounce. And there's a number of reasons for that, which we'll get into as well. Okay, I'm looking at a 54-58 set. I'm a beginner looking for advice. Would like one to be sandwich and the other for chipping. How to pick bounce and grind for each shot function. Okay, looking at 54 and 54. Okay, so that's a great, who is that? Joey? You have a 50, you're looking at a 54 and a 58. Okay, those are good ones to have for sure. So here's a 54. Do I have a 58? I don't have a 58 in here. I thought I did. I have a 48. I have a 56. No 58. Okay, so here's a 54 SM7. So here's what you want to look at. If you hit the ball high with your 58, are you looking for height on that? For me, I like to hit my 60 low. I like to, because it's so lofted, it's going to go high. So I like to be able to bring it in lower. So on my 60, or let's say it's a 58, I would take a lot of bounce. I would want more bounce, like a 12 or 14. Because the more bounce you add, the lower the ball goes. That bounce actually helps bring that ball down. So for the 58, I recommend, for me, I like to bring it in low. Now, if you like to bring it in high, I would say don't put a lot of bounce on that. Okay, and then in terms of the grind, this one's an M grind, and they carve a little bit off the heel and the toe, which I like, and they actually have a D grind, which I have one of those in the 60, which I really love. It's somewhere. Yeah. So Titleist, the SM7s, they have a D grind and an M grind. They're similar. I like the D grind because it allows me to open up the face. So Joey, this might be something for you to look at. You can open up the face on the D grind and even the M grind to some degree, and you're not adding bounce. You're adding loft, but with other grinds, when you open that face up, that sole is not grinded down on the heel, so you're adding bounce when you open the face. So since you have that 58, if you want to open that face and keep that leading edge lower to the ground, a grind such as the D grind would be nice because it takes off a piece of that sole on the heel and the toe. And then you're able to hit those shots on the tighter lies and really work it by opening that face, and then you're still able to really clip that ball right by hitting it kind of with that leading heel. So if you feel comfortable with that shot, I like that. And the 54, 58 is good. And then I'm assuming you have a 50, and then your pitching wedge is like a 46. So that gapping is the same, those 4 degrees. 46, then 4 more is 50, I think. And then 54 and 58 would be perfect gapping. And then just test it out and make sure that with the bounces you choose, that one's not going a lot farther than the other. So like for me, I have one of my SM5s is a 54 degree, but we bent it to 55. So we added loft, but we added bounce, and it kept the flight lower, and we got the right spacing of our ball distances between our wedges. So that helped a lot. Okay, Mason, this is a common problem. Why can't I hit my 60, but I hit my 56 fine? That's, okay, that has to do, so chances are, I would say, Mason, that your 56, is that what you said, 56? Is very, very different than your 60 in terms of bounce and sole and grind. So here's my Mac Daddy. I have 8 degrees of bounce on my 56, and then 12 degrees with my 60. And I mean, these two clubs are incredibly different. So when I'm going to hit it, I've got to know that, okay, this has a thin sole and this has a much wider sole plate. So I just have to, I have to just be aware of that and practice that. But maybe you need to adjust and get a different 60 that looks a lot more like your 56 because you're just a lot more familiar and comfortable with that shot. And it's hard to jump from, let's say, one sole to another and just everything come off perfectly, especially, and this is important, if you're using it for the exact same shot but from a different distance. Which, okay, that's something that really will punish you. So let's say I'm 80 yards in the middle of the fairway, normal fairway lie, and I grab my 56, or however far you hit it, right? Maybe it's 100, I don't know. And I hit a normal shot, boom. And then I have 65 yards. And so I grab my 60 and I do it's the exact same shot. So if that's how you're using your wedges and they're all different, you're going to be in trouble. Because the way the sole interacts with the turf is different for each sole, each grind, and each bounce. So what I do, I say, okay, my 60 is for around the greens and the bunker. And that's it. I'm not going to hit it from 65, 70 yards. I never do that. What I hit is either my gap wedge, my 50, because it has a lot of bounce, and I like that off those tight lies, and it has a thin sole, lot of bounce, which is one of my favorite combinations, or I will hit my 55 or 56 off the fairway, and I'll just 3/4 swing and bring it in, bring it down. But I always have one club, if it's and usually it's my 60, or some people go to 64, 62, And that's just for around the green. That's just for special shots, one high shots here, you know, little bunker shots, or just, you know, whatever shots I'm playing around the green. And then in the fairway, when I'm hitting to the green, I'm using a different wedge. And sometimes I will go with 2 wedges that are specialty, one specifically out of the sand, because I really like this D grind out of the sand. And then if it's a really soft, bushy conditions, like in the winter, I like that wide sole, because it really glides through that rough and the high grass and the wet, thick, mushy stuff. It really glides through it and have a lot of control of that face. So I'll do that wide sole on my 60, and then I'll do a 56 with this D grind and use that out of the sand trap, because I just like the more kind of pear-shaped, rounded sole out of the bunkers. That's just me. Okay, why am I so inconsistent? Why with my short game in general? Great question. Okay, how much you practice is key, right? Don't be afraid to practice your short game off the mat, even in your backyard or wherever you can, because you're really going to get, the truth is going to be revealed to you quickly. How, you know when you hit this a little heavy. And you could get away with it on the grass, but on the mat, you just, oh, okay, I hit way behind the ball. And then when you clip it, it really is, it's a good sound. But I would look at, if you're so inconsistent, I would look at your setup. I like to be right in the middle, hands just a touch forward, feet close together. And I'm always talking rotation. This is me right here. And I don't like a lot of hand motion. Too many people I see try to open that toe up, even on these, you're like, that is going to ruin your consistency. Think Steve Stricker, Jason Day, right in there for chipping. And I would just start here. You could have 50-50 weight, or you can have a slight weight on your left foot, and just think about rotating, and just get out there and practice more. Stay away from the driving range. If your short game is inconsistent, that's the thing. You could be any age and have a world-class short game. I've seen little kids have some of the best short games. I've seen older, people have amazing short games. It doesn't take any special strength or ability. It just takes practice. So stay away from the driving range and go just to the short game area and just practice little stuff. So I'll sit here for an hour and I'll just chip from right here to the bottom of the net to see if I can hit right on the bottom of the net, right there. And I'll just sit here for an hour, 2 hours. I just come out, and this is, kind of my man cave, right? But go to where you can just little shots. You got this space somewhere. Hallway. I used to do when I was growing up. Well, when I was in college, I'd practice in my apartment, just in my hallway. I'd chip balls from my living room down the hallway onto my bed, in my bedroom. And my roommate, he would walk out of his bedroom sometimes, and I'd almost clip him in the head. Scary, but you do things that can help you get better like that. Okay, this is my gapping. Thanks, everyone. What is your gapping? Oh, I didn't see it. Look at me. Go back. All right. Good, you guys are playing. I love it. I love it. Okay, so when you are chipping, let me get this, because this is something that's really, really helpful. So this is, again, my 60-degree SM7 K grind with 14 degrees of bounce, and you can see it has that wide sole. So this is about as much sole and as much bounce as you'll find. And so many people think that more bounce is for the higher handicappers. And that couldn't be further from the truth. This is look, I've used this wedge obviously for years. Look at that thing. This is my 60, my Vokey SM5. It's like the identical club as this. This is the 7 version. And I mean, I have worn this puppy out. 11 degrees of bounce. So now I have 14 degrees of bounce. I went way up. Because it's so useful when you are around the greens, in the longer grass, in fluffy bunkers. You want more bounce, typically, in a bunker that's real fluffy. Because you want to avoid that leading edge digging in at all costs. And you could be on a tight lie and hit that thing nice and high. And most of the time, I have the bounce hitting the turf first. And it's so comforting to know when I go up to a shot on a tight lie around the green, I am not forced to hit that ball first, because I can hit it just slightly behind the ball. I can hit it a little heavy, and I'm gonna have the result I want. Just a nice soft little land and a little bit of roll. You can hear that. Totally hit the ground first, that mat first. So don't be afraid to go high bounce, big sole, if you're a lower handicap player. Because you can really utilize the technology for your benefit. And then maybe on your 56 or 54, you mix it up and you go no bounce, or 4 degrees of bounce and a thin sole. And then you can just open that face and work it however you want. But this is something, I just love that shot. And because it has so much bounce, I can flight it lower. Oh, good question, Mark. Why do some of my chips have backspin and some don't? Okay. So, Mark, I'm going to assume you're using the same ball. And don't tell me Titleist Velocity didn't have backspin and your Pro V1 did. Because then that's the answer. So I'm going to assume you're using the same type of ball, high spinning ball, and you are hitting like a similar shot, and some check, some don't. So it could be, a lot of it could be, let's say you're hitting into the grain of the green and it really checks, and the other time it's down grain. That could be a possibility. It could be so many times I hit this shot, like I'll open that face and I'll come and I'll hit this like super low shot. And how does it go so low? I open the face so much. It could be, usually what I find, it's where you hit it on the face. So if you hit down, like if it hits too high up on the face, it's not going to have as much spin as it would if you hit it lower in the grooves, just because as that club travels, it's grabbing that ball and it stays on the face longer, when it's down here. There's just more surface area. So if you hit it a little up here, there's just not as many grooves over there. Or if it's a little on the toe, if you hit it on the toe, it's not going to have much spin at all. So it could be very well just where on that club you're striking it. Okay, and that's one option. Another is sometimes you take a long swing and you're coming into the ball and you're not really fully accelerating. Whereas if you take this short swing and go, then you're really going to have a ton of spin. That's something Lee Trevino always talked about. Man, he would get in the bunker like this, and he would just, he would take this short swing and just, boom, really fire at the ball with a short swing. And you could just hear it and see how much, backspin he got. Just like thin that. I'm trying not to hit it over the fence. But so that could be an option too. Maybe you're just here. So when I try to get some check on it, I'm just making sure that thing's set up right in the middle. And I'm short and super accelerating through the ball as much as I can right here. But it's mostly has to do with ball contact, where that ball is on the face and how long that ball stays on the face when you're chipping. I shot 98 yesterday, SM5, 51 in the front 40. Oh, I shot 98 yesterday, 51 in the front 40. All right, good job. Was told every 75 rounds. Yeah, I don't know if you guys saw my Lazy Susan. Some of you are commenting on that. Somebody sent me a link. Apparently that product's been made before. I'm not going to share the link. You could go on the video and find it. But mine are 2 feet. The other thing was kind of a one-piece situation. But that could definitely help your swing. The low check, okay. Okay, one is, what is my philosophy on wedge shots? Okay, good question. So I'm not like a 9 o'clock, a time wedge player, where it's like, okay, I'm swinging to whatever o'clock that is, and here. Some people do it and have great success. That's not me. I'm a feel player, because sometimes I'll just be out there and I'll have 70 yards and I want to hit a pitching wedge. I just feel like that's the feeling I have right now. And so I'll grab my whatever wedge I have. I've got a 48, and I will take a shot and I want to do that. So I'm very much a feel player when it comes to the short game and my wedges. But my philosophy in general is I want the ball to go in as low as possible. That's usually where I begin. Like, okay, I want it low. So how can I get it low? Because low will spin more. Low is typically a spinning shot, and I could control the distance more the lower the shot goes. Once it gets up in the air, think about this. If you hit a wedge shot slightly offline, right, and most shots are not perfect, so the longer it's in the air, the more it's going to be offline when it lands. Whereas if it's a low shot offline, it's going to land sooner and stop. It's not going to just float around up there. So that's why I like to go in low with my wedges. And with today's technology and equipment, even on the firmest greens, what are you going to play Shinnecock on Saturday? Like, seriously, you can stop the ball if making a solid strike. Which brings me to Patrick says he's a pretty good short game. He's missing one shot, that low check spinner or the one hop and stop. Yeah, I can try to demonstrate that. Here, let's see what I can do. So what I do, if I'm trying that shot, the one hop and stop, I will typically use not a 60-degree wedge. So I would use let's say here's a 52, okay? And so this is, you've got to know your gear too. So this is a 10-degree bounce. What I can do with my 10-degree bounce, 52-degree, this is my Mac Daddy 4. Let's say I want that low spinning checker. Here's where people kind of misuse their wedges. What they'll do is they'll keep the face shut or square, which that will help keep it low. But what it does also, remember, if you open the face on 10 degrees of bounce, I'm going to add like a degree or two of bounce, and bounce helps keep the ball lower, right? So when I open the face, I'm I can swing a little harder. It's going to go a little higher, but with adding bounce, it's going to then counteract that and lower that ball flight. So when you want that low spinning checker shot, I take a club like my gap wedge with less loft. I open it up to add loft, which adds bounce. So, but if I had a 4 degree, 52 degree, if I had a 4 degree bounce gap wedge, I wouldn't use that club. I'd use a different club with a lot of bounce. And then I would open that up a little bit. I might back it up. And now I want to hit a little down on that with the open face, but I added a little bounce, which is going to help me out. And all that, back it up a little bit in your stance and rotate through here. And that should give you that lower spinning one hop and stop, depending on the distance you're looking for. So I would use that. Let's say I've got like 20 yards. I missed a par 5 and 2. I'm in the fairway or just laid up, or I was in trouble on a par 4, or I hit a bad shot on a par 3, and I have a good lie, fairway or something, tight lie. I'm just backing that up in my stance a little bit. I'm opening up my gap wedge, hands a little forward, and I'm really rotating through, hitting a slightly down on the ball. And that's going to help keep that ball low, but you're going to add a lot of spin on it because you're opening the face. I hope that was clear. That's what I do. Okay? I don't just take the 60 and try to, shaft lean that thing down there to manipulate a low one hop and stop. I take a lot less lofted club to do it. And you'll see that on tour. These guys, I follow those pros a lot, and they're hitting it as low as possible. And the lower you hit it, typically the more spin you're going to have on that. Okay. Okay, Andrew says, how important is it to take a divot? You know what? Greg Norman, that dude never took a divot. It's not that important to take a divot. I wouldn't, when I was learning the game, it was all about the divot. Like, man, I want to get that divot. You see the pros on TV, and you're like, and so you see this cool in a divot, and you really want to be able to just pick that ball and take a perfect divot. I think the divot's overrated. Once you're a scratch player, you never think about taking a divot. I guarantee you, it's like Brooks Koepka's not out there like, that was a nice divot. Check that out. He's not looking at his divot. He doesn't care. None of those guys care about a divot. So it's not important. What's important is striking that ball cleanly and making good contact. See, if you're taking a divot behind the ball, then I'd be worried. But again, so this brings up an important point is how do you, and I did a video on this and we talked about it, how do you take that divot in front of the ball as opposed to behind the ball? And we misinterpret it we lean forward because we want that club to come down, and then you're hitting way too far down on the ball and bring that club to the left. In reality, you've got to turn your chest over here because that changes the bottom of the arc of your swing to in front of the ball. So it's just it's rotation that helps you get that divot in front of the ball. And then you'll stop thinking about it after a while. That was a perfect one. And it's just really rotating that body around. So work on that. Yeah, okay, when you say you're going to come down on the ball, okay. Yeah, when I say I'm going to come down on the ball, I'm not like thinking this. I'm really thinking, in to out kind of swing. And even that, you're right, that's not the best term is come down on the ball, but I might just make sure that club comes back a little steeper, but I'm still rotating through and keeping those hands low over here. So that's what I mean when I say kind of come down on the ball, is keep my hands low over here. Keep my hands down around there. I mean, if you could finish here on those shots, those low spinning checkers, that's where I like to finish, is right over here. Not up here. The higher you finish, the higher the ball, typically. Tiger Woods used to talk about that all the time. He'd say, hands high, high shot. Hands low, low shot. So when you come in and you're rotating that body around here, that's your low spinning checker finish. All while coming down on the ball. So that's a 50. I also have a 50, which I use all the time. This is the one. So my 50-degree gap wedge, that's my low spinning checker club. Even, I mean, look at this groove. Look at these grooves. Can you see those over here? I mean, that thing's worn out. I have new ones, but this is my SM5 Vokey 50-degree gap wedge, 12 degrees of bounce, and it has the F grind on this particular model. It's a couple years old, a few years old, but it's very similar to any of your other clubs. Right, here's my 6-iron. So my gap wedge and my pitching wedge and my irons are all going to have similar style soles, because my gap wedge and my pitching wedge are clubs I use for full swings. The gap wedge is the last club I will use for a full swing. So I won't use my 54-degree for a full swing. No way, because it's more a specialty club now, with the grind, with the loft, or the bounce, with the grind, with the sole. So it's a specialty club. So my pitching wedge, from my pitching wedge, gap wedge, sand wedge, lob wedge, are all going to be specialty clubs. They're all going to be the same in terms of like manufacturer. Well, I'll mix it up sometimes, but they're all going to really work in conjunction with each other. But my gap wedge and my pitching wedge, the sole will be very similar to my irons. They'll just have different bounces, different degree of bounces, because I'll take a full swing with my gap wedge and obviously my pitching wedge, but I won't take a full swing with my 54. Because this is something I would use, one, around the greens. A lot of chipping around the greens with the 54. Because let's say I have I want the ball to run a little bit. It's not such a tight pin, but I won't take a full swing. I'll use it from the fairway, 60, 70 yards, but that's not a full club. Like if I really swung full on this, it might go 100 yards, and then my 50 would go about 120, 115, and then my gap is like, or then my pitching wedge is about 125, 130. I don't want to hit those far. I don't want to hit my pitching wedge 150 yards. Okay, so this is my 54. This is something like fairway, 40, 50, 60 yards, and then around the greens, really specific shots, but I use it a ton. A lot out of the bunker, as well as my 60. But that 100-yard shot, I'll use a pitching wedge, a gap wedge. Just because I could hit this 100 doesn't mean I want to. Okay, a mid-range wedge shot? Okay, two good questions. Okay, Mark asked another question. What does bounce mean? Bounce is the degree. Let's see if you can see this. Let's get in here, okay? Can you see? Can you see so this is the leading edge, and this piece back here it hangs below the leading edge. Do you see that? Hopefully. So if you see that, so the bounce is how far below the leading edge this sole comes down, right? So the more it comes down, the greater degree. So that's not how far it rolls, it's the degree. So loft is this way, right? This is loft. So bounce is the exact same thing, but it's going from the leading edge down that way. It's basically the opposite of your loft. So if that's your loft, like your bounce would be here, right? This edge. The loft goes up, bounce goes down. That makes sense? It's confusing because so many times we don't understand what does bounce mean? We think bounce is this chunk here. The bounce is not the chunk. This chunk is the sole of the wedge. It's the sole. And then the grind is the shape of the sole. The bounce is just how far down does this piece come below this edge. I know it took me a long time to understand it. But once you understand it, I spent time with Bob Vokey at the Titleist Performance Institute a few years ago. There's videos on my site. You can check those out. They're not the greatest because the camera's shaking all over the place and it's just a mess. But we had a great time, and he really went through it in such a way that it made so much sense. And just like a light went off, and I'm like, I get it. I get it. And from that point, it changed my entire game. And that year I went out, won my club championship, and I hit so many little wedge shots, it was ridiculous. I mean, I was doing things I had never done before. Middle of the fairway, people were just, oh, give me the sand wedge. 100 yards, boop. And I said, nope, give me a pitching wedge. And I'm going to hit this low little guy in here and just hit my shot and controlled everything. So once you really understand not just what bounce is, but how it applies to your game, man, a light bulb's going to go off and your short game is going to go to another level. So really spend time understanding what loft and bounce have to do with each other and how they help, how bounce helps you, how it could hurt you. Because bounce is your friend. Bob Vokey would say this, bounce is your friend. And you need to use it to the best of your ability. So, and he told me a story about Rory had come in there and his gapping was off and his ball flight was off, and you know, they're trying all these different things, and Bob just says, look, let's just add some bounce to this club. And boom, it dropped his ball flight down, whew, he was off and running. So sometimes it's just a matter of, you don't need a different shaft length, you don't need a different shaft weight, you don't need a different club, you don't need a different loft, you just might need a different bounce to help, you know, fix a piece that's missing. Like if you're 4 wedges, let's say you play with 4 wedges, you could have the perfect loft. You're like, okay, I got the gapping. I got the 48, the 52, the 56, and the 60. Perfect. But your bounces could be off. And so one shot goes really high, and the next shot goes really low. And this one, it's just the next club. And you're like, why does it do that? What am I doing? And it could frustrate you, and you could be losing distance because one club goes super high, and then the other club goes super far. And you're like, I don't get it. The lofts are perfect. The gapping technically is right, but the ball's not cooperating with what we got going on. And it could just be very well your bounce that you need to have looked at. Okay, how would you approach a mid-range wedge shot in the UK compared to the USA? Mid-range wedge shot. Mid-range, what is that? We'll say 80 yards. Okay, how in the US, I would assume we're talking, it depends, I don't know. UK, I would imagine, okay, let's just say UK, we're somewhere where it's these tight lie, link style course. I'm gonna go with that. Okay, so I've got just this really hard pan lie, link style golf course, versus the US where I have a mushy fairway lie, really soft. Good question. So hopefully, and I have like 80 yards. All right, good question. Hopefully I have the right equipment. I would want to look at, okay, in the US, I would want a wide sole. So let's say I have 80 yards. I got a 54. I'm going to use the same club both times. We're going to use a 54-degree wedge for this shot, okay? So that's a 60. I don't want that. Put that away. Okay, so let's take a 54 and a 54. How many 54s do I got in here? Okay, so in the US, I would probably use something with a wider sole. What is this? And probably I could get away with a lot of bounce. So this is kind of a 54 wide sole, 12-degree bounce. And so I'm going to get away with a lot more here than I am on that UK, let's say, link style golf course. So here, I would just hit my normal shot here, rotating around. Now, if I'm going to UK to play somewhere, the Open Championship or something, then I probably wouldn't bring that club. I would go with something with, here we go. This is what I bring right here. This is my 54 with 8 degrees of bounce, so a lot less bounce. And this is the Vokey SM7. This is the M grind. So I've got some sole, but if I open the face a little bit, it's grinded off so the sole disappears. So I like that. So I can open this face a little bit on that tight lie. Okay, that's what I would do, and really rotate through and lose some of the sole, because I want less sole when I'm dealing with that tight lie. And then you're just gonna have to hit a better shot. I mean, sometimes it's just, man, this is gonna be you're gonna have to have your game. So sometimes, like I say, hey, you tell football players or basketball players, you're just gonna have to play better than that guy today. That's just gonna have to be the way it is. So sometimes you're just gonna have to hit a good shot. But I would just open the face a little bit more there in the UK and do a little more rotation. Or what I did at Bandon Dunes when I had like a 80-yard shot, super hard pan. I hit my 3-wood like a putt, and it rolled up there to like 3 feet for birdie. So I only did that shot once, but it worked, and I might do that. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to do that. All right. Okay. As a new golfer, just over 1 year, congratulations, James. I get really overwhelmed with the advice, and lucky I found your channel. Thanks, dude. How important is it to keep your head down? Oh, James, you haven't been watching all of it, all the videos, have you? Okay. We'll talk about it, especially chipping. This is awesome. And you should practice this when you're chipping. Like I always say, when you keep your head down, you stop a lot of good things from happening. You get stuck in here. And it's easy to release your hands. If your head stays, you're going to release those hands a little early, and chance are you hit it fat. So I would say really work hard on forgetting about keeping your head down. Like start like this, like this. Like just start here, you know. You could see the ball. Just hit shots. That was horrible. But you don't have to keep your head down. You want to rotate, and it's hard to rotate. I mean, you see Rory do that. I mean, he's rotating and his head's like turning backwards. But I would really work on rotating, and let that head, don't come up. Let that head rotate around like this. So just, and you see Ian Poulter do that. You see, who else? DJ does that, Dustin Johnson. And he's in here and he's like, so work on that. Just let that head rotate. Don't worry about keeping it down so much. Okay, good question. Mark keeps asking good questions, so I'll keep answering them. When I open up the face, I have to move my aim to the left. I don't see you having to do that. No, well, no. Okay, so when he opens up the face, he says he has to aim left. I think I'm getting that correct. And let me just make sure I got this right. I don't see you having to do that. What am I doing? Okay. So I'm just aiming square and I open the face. And then I rotate around. And because of my rotation, that club is traveling down the line. Now, some people, it depends on your ball position too, because some people open that face, or some people turn their feet like this, and they're like, that's not aiming to the left. Okay, just because you turned your feet like this doesn't mean you aim left. Okay, I'm still aiming left. I mean, this is aiming left, really. So this is good. So what happens is but that's fine. If you want to aim left, that's fine. I would assume, let's say, now I open up the face and I'm aiming straight. Okay, and then I'm just, you could do that. And that's not a bad way to go. For me, I usually set up square, open that face. It depends on the shot, really. If I'm sometimes I aim way left, but for that low spinning checker shot, I'll aim straight, open up the face, and then I'm swinging a little inside out, okay, and rotating, and it'll go perfectly straight. So I don't know if you're doing anything wrong by having to aim left, but practice just setting up square, open that face, and if it's going too far to the right, you're probably just coming inside out and swinging out and holding your hands instead of rotating around the ball. So just try really turning those shoulders around, because as you know, it's like swinging a bat. You know, if you want to hit it to right field, you kind of keep those shoulders closed and hit out there. And same thing, if you're swinging into out and pushing your club out there, the ball is going to go out there. So sometimes you open that face and it's just easier to swing into out, or you open those feet and then you open that, and you're just, you know, you're more an up and down swinger, it's possible. And so you have to aim left. But I would just try rotating more. I think that would definitely help. Yeah, it shoots way right. Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah, so I would say you're swinging into out and you're not really rotating like you need to, Mark. That would be my guess. Okay, how do you hit the flop shot? And how do you control the distance? Okay, great question. Okay, let me get something I can hit a flop shot with here. I'm grabbing the, let's get a club with like no bounce, because I'm hitting off a mat right now. So I've got my 60-degree wedge, L grind. It's got a little grind off the heel, more off the toe. And this is a 4 degrees of bounce. There's nothing here. You could hit the flop with a lot of bounce. It's just hard off the mat. It might be hard. So it depends, like how far are you hitting the flop shot? Are you doing the Phil Mickelson full swing? You know, but I would work on right there what I just did. This is how I learned how to hit a control flop shot. And there's a couple ways to do it. And I would practice, this guy I met, he said, practice off the mat, because then you know if you're hitting the good shots. This will really test your hand coordination. I'll aim a little to the left. Just put that ball a little forward. And then I'm just kind of swinging out here and work on this short little swing. Right there, like I didn't hit the ball first. So I want to work on that. And I'm just working on just these short high shots. Those weren't very good. And one way to practice this would be the second way, is no wrist. Like you could take a flop shot, this short flop shot with no wrist, just going back here like that. And it's just a short little flop shot. I would start there and practice that. Really pancake that club, open, no wrist, and work on that just off a mat. If you could do it off a mat, then you could definitely do it off the grass. Where can you see me? I don't know. You know, here I'm on the grass here. It's not the best lie for a flop shot. But if you could do it off the mat, you could do it off of grass. That's not the, I would never do a flop shot off that lie. There's actually a little give in this mat. So this is how I do it typically. Not too many wrists. And then I try to just get it as high as I can, as short as I can. And then to control the distance, you just got to practice that. You know, if you're going really high and not far, like a Phil Mickelson style shot, you got to spend a lot of time practicing that. Yeah. So those flop shots, I typically don't use a flop shot. I mean, honestly, I can hit them there. I probably hit a flop shot, gosh, once every 10 rounds of golf, maybe. You know, I'll do this little guy sometimes. And that shot I love. And that's just this little no hands, just I open it up. Oh, and I'm just like here. And I'm trying to slide the club under the ball. This is on a tighter lie. I wouldn't do this in the rough, because I'm actually trying to hit the ball back up here on the top of the club face. I'm trying to slide it under and hit it as high up on the club face as possible. Just like that. I went a little far, but that's where I'm going for. Slide it under. And that's my flop. I mean, if you really want to get crazy, I don't want to get too crazy. There, I hit it over the net. I'll do one more. My neighbors are moving, so they've moved out back here. The gymnasts. You guys have seen them in some of my videos. They're moved. They're tearing down the thing. It's crazy. All right, I'll go high. Let's see, like this is the big break over the wall style. Pretty good. Made it over. I don't know how close I can get it. Okay. But how do you hit a punchy lowest? Okay, we'll go to. Okay, how do you tell how much bounce your wedge has? There's well, most of them these days have a number here. It says this is a 60. It says 04 on it. That's my degree of bounce. That little number underneath the. Is that blurry? I don't know. So right here, that number, 60 degrees loft, 4 degrees bounce, L grind. So it'll typically say. They didn't used to really say. It was kind of, you had to kind of guess. But nowadays, man, you can get pretty much any combination that you're looking for. Which obviously, it can be overwhelming. You're like, I don't know, what do I want? When you're going online, you go to these sites. Okay, I want Titleist, I want Calorie, I want TaylorMade, I want this club, I want that. But what bounce? Then okay, I want these lies. Or you go to their club fitting kind of online analyzer, and you go through it, and you don't know what bounces you want. So it can be very, very confusing. I get it. But I would start with the gapping, okay, pitching wedge. What pitching wedge gapping do you want? In terms of your loft, 48, 46 is kind of your pitching wedge. And start there. And then every 4 degrees, you can go 4 or 5 degrees difference in your spacing. So if you have a 48 degree, you might want to go 52, 56, 60. If you have like a 46, you might want to go 46, 50, 54, 58. You can do that. Like I did a 46, 50, then I went 55, then I went 60. So I added a little bit. I went from 4 degrees to 5 degrees for my last 2 clubs, which works out great. So you just got to start there and then think about, okay, what kind of shots do I like to play? And then you can adjust. In the bunker, I feel comfortable. I need a lot of bounce. So then I would go, I like to play my 60 in the bunker, so I want a lot of bounce on that with a wide sole. Perfect. I got that. Okay. And then I start mixing it up a little bit, like, oh, I want to play my pitching wedge or my gap wedge out of the fairway a lot. And I play softer conditions, so give me a little more bounce. That'll help me. And then I'll do that. And then I say, okay, then on my 54 or 55, then I will, let's do a very little bounce on that so I have an option around the greens if I need it. You can mix it up. And we're gonna do a ton of wedge videos. Stay tuned to the channel. We're about to wrap it up here. And we're doing just a ton of wedge videos. I really wanna get just our short game, as we're really ramping up into golf season. Let's get our short game dialed in big time. Let's get it better than it's ever been. And we can just do that with our short game. So I'm gonna do a ton of short game wedge videos, like how to play this shot, how to play that shot. Here's the club for this shot, and here's why. And we're gonna go through it and have a great time doing that. All right, let's do one more question, then we're out. Okay. Okay, Choco, what really makes the release happen? You will see elusive response. I don't know what that means. Well, what makes the release happen? Okay, momentum, where your body is. I mean, that club is, you just can't hold on to that forever. You'll break your arms, I think. You know, you're coming back. It's just momentum. And since you're not squeezing the grip too tight, yeah, by the way, if you squeeze tightly, it's gonna mess up your release. You just want that natural, you want that club to be here and naturally release out. Even on your short game. That's why you want to take your time. I'll leave you with this. Take your time transitioning from your backswing to your forward swing on your chip shots. And that's a good way to leave it. Like, wait for it. Like, stop and feel the gravity start to take over and then go. Like, that's the thing. On these little shots, you can't start the swing by yourself. You've got to let it start on its own. You just got to let it, and man, just let it go and then accelerate. Like, if you rush it, you're just going to hit horrible shots. It's not going to be good. So for starters, I'll end with this. Just when you're doing all these chip shots, you want to rotate. You want to rotate. Just let your hands, let the downswing happen by itself. So I'm here. I mean, once I feel my hands, then I start. I'm just waiting. Wait for it. Like in Braveheart. Hold, hold, hold. Just hold. Hold for that split second and let it happen. Let it happen by its own. All right. I think we're done. Yeah, try hitting with your right hand only. That's a great drill. Work on that. Also, remember, you know, I did a video about taking your hands. You're using too many hands. And on the short game, I talk about a lot about using your hands. I know I do that. But typically we use too many hands on our regular swing and not enough hands. Or even some people use too many hands down here. So if we could just, in general, rotate and use less hands, you're gonna be better off and a lot more consistent. So anyways, thanks for watching the show. Thanks for being here live. Appreciate it. And thanks for subscribing to the channel. If you're a subscriber, I appreciate that. We hit 10K. Way over it now. So thank you so much. We're rocking. We're gonna keep on jamming. We've got a lot of cool things planned. And I'm excited about that. So anyways, thanks for stopping by. Please subscribe. Check out the links. There might be a link. There might not be a link. I don't know if I put any links below. Anyways, thanks for sticking around. We'll see you on Thursday, same time, 3 o'clock, Pacific Standard Time. And got a new video coming tomorrow, just kind of our introductory video on our wedge series. So we're talking about the 60-degree wedge in the video I'm going to put out tomorrow, and then we're going to do a bunch of videos just on wedges. So anyways, let me know what you want to see. Shoot me your questions, comments, concerns, all that good stuff. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.